So we've got the MCU, the DCEU, well, sort of, and now we have the Astroverse. Brahmastra Part 1 Shiva is a new Indian film that I think could give the other two franchises something to think about. When evil forces threaten the existence of every living thing, a young man named Shiva must journey to discover his true identity. So as you heard from the title, this is part 1. Brahmastra is planned as a trilogy, with the first installment laying all the groundwork for what's to come, as well as introducing us to our main protagonist, Shiva, or Shiva. They both pronounced it different ways. Now, so many times in a hero story, the character is flawed in some way or another and has to overcome their deficits in order to become a better person worthy of being called a hero. With Shiva, the dude is just a good guy all the way around. He doesn't have deep, dark secrets that he hides to maintain some sort of image. And I love this. I love that we get a hero that we can support and root for straight from the start. This movie has been on my can't wait to see list for several months. And to give you an idea of the genre that this would fit in, it's a superhero, action, romantic, musical fantasy. Yeah, I know, that sounds like a lot, right? And it probably even sounds like it shouldn't work. But each of the facets in this get moments to shine, and they all connect and then feel natural in the execution. And there aren't any pieces that feel shoehorned in. Take the musical aspect, for instance. There are several song and dance numbers, which are mainly towards the beginning, or at least the first half of the film. But the songs are incredibly catchy, and I was definitely tapping my foot during a lot of them. And then to prove my point even more, when I got out to my car afterwards, I put on the soundtrack on Spotify and I just started listening. Now, one of the dance numbers is massive in scale, and it has so many singers and dancers taking part in it. The choreography is great to watch, and not only do the words of the songs reinforce the message of the story, but the scene fits extremely well, and then it amps up the momentum and the excitement right from the start. The movie starts out with some awesome animation to introduce us to the lore where there are these beings who possess these special powers that protect everything from the forces of evil. I mean, it was a lot to take in, but it's no different than really any other superhero story where we're given the baseline mythology before diving into the story. Now, as this goes along, we do get more insight and information on the beings and their roles. So even if you miss small moments in that intro, you can still track along and be totally fine. There are a few main players in this, starting with Ranbir Kapoor and Alia Bhatt. Now, they play Shiva and Isha, respectively. Isha is the love interest of Kapoor's Shiva, and they have some wonderful chemistry together. Their dynamic is captivating to watch as they not only have this great banter that's back and forth, but the looks in their eyes I felt were extremely convincing. And that totally makes sense because after I saw the movie, I found out that those two got married in real life this past April. So the chemistry we watch on screen is actual real chemistry. I mean, and it really translates to us through the screen. Now, another main player is Mooni Roy. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She's playing Janoon, the main antagonist within the story. Now, she's got this great look to her that makes her look menacing and powerful. She's got these throat tattoos, and I love how the special effects are used to light them up at key moments to really intensify the power and the rage that's emanating from her. And finally, the last main character we have is the Guru, played by Amitabh Bachchan. Now, I probably slaughtered his name, but he's grandfatherly looking, and I love the wisdom and the fierceness that his character has. Now, he's got this wicked weapon that is surprising, but it's also cool. Now, there are large portions of this movie that rely heavily on CGI and other special effects. So that means that the overall feel of this rests on whether or not those graphics are passable. And they're way more than passable. I mean, seriously, our current American superhero houses really need to take some pointers from this film when it comes to awesome looking effects. Now we meet several different characters with abilities, and each of those abilities is represented with different colors. And this makes it wonderful to watch as a large battle happens because there are colors just exploding all over the screen. Now I'm really happy that when it comes to the action sequences in this, there is very minimal amount of slow-mo that's utilized. Now when slow motion does come into play, it's used sparingly and effectively to really enhance a motion or a fight movement instead of relying on that throughout every sequence. Now, there are a lot of quick cuts when fights break out, especially in the first half of the movie, but they seem to lessen in favor of wider shots that showcase the fight choreography in the latter half of the film. And the fight choreography, I mean, it's a lot of fun to watch. There are so many hand-to-hand battles, but it's also mixed with characters utilizing special supernatural skills, which then creates a lot of excitement and energy. Now, some of the cinematography is beautiful, especially when we're seeing city areas where large portions of people are gathered. The camera gives a great sense of the surroundings, but also then conveys the feel for the culture in the process. Because the antagonist is searching for some artifacts in order to carry out their plan, there is an urgency that we feel in the narrative that's present almost from the very beginning. Now, this creates momentum for the story that keeps it progressing, but not in a way that felt rushed, especially because there would be these interjections of songs or even character building moments. Now, there is a type of training montage that happens towards the end of the movie, and I was worried it might get a little stale or even routine. But really, it was long enough to be convincing in the character's progress, but not so long that it got boring or outstayed its welcome. And speaking of length, this movie is a long one at 2 hours and 43 minutes. But honestly, it didn't feel long. I do think there was one spot where I was curious about how much time had passed, but really that was due more to the increasing pressure on my bladder than on the storytelling itself. Now, for the overall story arc, I do think it has predictable moments and direction. There are some story reveals that felt like they were meant to be a surprise, but I had already guessed it way before the story told me. And I don't think this is a huge negative to the narrative because the reveal just isn't meant to be something so mysterious and shocking. I mean, otherwise, I hope that they would have really obscured that information better. So overall, Brahmastra Part 1 Shiva is an exciting entry into the cinematic universe. The actors are charismatic and easy to root for, with a story arc that is engaging and urgent. The mythology and lore are expertly supported by convincing special effects and fight choreography. While it could feel out of place, the singing and dancing work to enhance the beauty and the energy of the story, building onto the narrative rather than being a useless add-on. And as much as this is an action fantasy superhero story, it's also a love story filled with a tremendous amount of heart. I'm really excited to see the next chapter in this trilogy, and I hope that we don't have to wait too long for Brahmastra Part 2 Dev. There's no sex or nudity, very brief profanity, if any, and a ton of violence. I give Brahmastra Part 1 Shiva 4.5 out of 5 couches. So what's a movie you're really looking forward to seeing in the next couple of months? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.